What's going on everyone and welcome to the channel. My name's Jack, I'm a chef by trade and my whole purpose for this channel is to give you 100% confidence in the kitchen as well as teach you absolutely everything I know. In this one we're going to be making a juicy and tender pork belly that's cut into thin strips then served with a rich teriyaki glaze, and we're also going to make a very colourful, very vibrant and extremely tasty Japanese inspired salad. Please sit back, relax and enjoy. Alright guys, let's start this off with a 450 gram or 15.8 ounce piece of pork belly that's had its rind or skin removed, and all we're going to do with this is lay our hand flat on top of the belly to secure it in place, and using a sharp knife slice the belly into thin strips roughly 1 to 2 centimeters thick, and once that's done you'll have something that looks like this, which we can then just pop aside. For the next ingredients, here is 1.5 brown or yellow onions, with the whole onion being used for the main dish and the half being used for a salad dressing. With the whole onion, we're just going to slice off both the ends and slice it straight in half. We can then remove the skin, and if you've been watching the channel for a while, which I'm truly thankful for, you'll know that I'm going to say that we can save the scraps for a stock. Now that that's done, proceed by slicing the onion into thin strips, and once you get 3/4 of the way through the onion, push it down to lay it flat, which will make it easier and safer to finish off the job. Next, grab yourself one piece of ginger that weighs 20 grams or 0.7 ounces, and using a spoon, peel the ginger. I find that when using a spoon, you reduce so much wastage, whereas when you use a peeler or a knife, it just removes too much of the flesh. Anyway, we can then chuck the ginger peels into a compost bin, and continue this by running the ginger along a fine microplane or grater to create a nice smooth paste, which is also known as minced. Make sure to scrape that all off of the microplane or grater to avoid any wastage, and pop this alongside the pork belly and thinly sliced onions. Now to make a tangy and delicious salad dressing, slice off both the ends of the halved brown or yellow onion, removing the skins and again saving them for a stock. Proceed by running the onion along the larger side of a grater, which will extract the onion's juices as well, which we also want to keep. I'll also say that you don't have to use brown or yellow onions for this part, you can use red onion, which is a little bit more mellow, but for this salad, the pungency of the brown or yellow onion really works well. Once that's done, add the grated onion into a small mixing bowl along with 1 teaspoon or 5 milliliters of toasted sesame oil for a delicious nutty flavour, half a tablespoon or 10 milliliters of white rice vinegar, which is both slightly sweet and acidic and works really well with the grated onions, half a tablespoon or 10 milliliters of naturally brewed soy sauce, which is salty, slightly sweet, slightly bitter, and will give our dressing an amazing umami flavour. And last but not least, 1 teaspoon or 4 grams of caster sugar, not only for a nice sweetness, but it will also mellow out the acidity from the vinegar. We can then give this a quick mix with a whisk to allow those flavours to become friends, and once that's done, we can then store this in the fridge for up to 5 days, or just until you're ready to serve. Now for the salad ingredients, here is 150 grams or 5.2 ounces of white cabbage, and 200 grams or 7 ounces of red cabbage. With both cabbages, remove the core as this part's really tough, and then we can chuck both the cores into a compost bin. Proceed by separating the cabbages in half, as this will make it a lot safer and easier to cut. Then come through with a sharp knife and slice the cabbages into thin strips, and in cooking terms this is called chiffonade. For the next ingredient, here is 1 small to medium sized carrot with the skin left on, and with this we're just going to top and tail it by removing both ends and saving those pieces for a stock. We can then slice the carrot in half and slice a very thin strip of the carrot off, which we can then just pop aside for a second, and then from doing this we can then lay the carrot on its flat surface, which will help us achieve easier, more accurate and safer slices. Then using a sharp knife, slice the carrot into thin, accurate strips. Once that's done, stack the strips into 3 or 4 pieces to achieve a more accurate cut, and follow through with the knife, slicing the carrots into thin matchstick pieces, with this cutting term being called julienne. Now last but not least, here is 1 spring onion or scallion, and with this, just slice off the white end, saving that piece for a stock or another dish. On an angle, we then want to slice the green stems of the spring onion or scallion to create nice diamond or oval shaped pieces. And you may be wondering why I didn't use the root end, and that is because the root end has a more pungent flavour, and we're already using onion in this recipe, and that's why we use the green end, because it has a slightly sweet and more mellow flavour. We can then place the white cabbage into a large mixing bowl along with the red cabbage, the julienne carrots, the thinly sliced spring onions or scallion, and our clean hands to thoroughly mix this all together just until everything is spread out evenly and you have a beautiful salad that's colourful, vibrant and extremely fresh. This can then be placed in the fridge for up to 3 days or until you're ready to serve. Now, to cook this, place a large skillet or wok onto your stovetop over a high heat, and once very hot, pour in 1 tablespoon or 15 milliliters of sunflower oil and add in the sliced pork. Proceed by spreading the pork out so it's not all on top of one another, and sear this for 2 to 3 minutes or until lightly golden, and depending on the size of your pan or skillet or wok or whatever you're using, you may have to do this in batches. 2.5 minutes later and very lightly golden, we can then flip the pork over, repeating the process for another 2.5 minutes, just until very lightly golden. Also, you'll notice at this stage that there's a lot of fat from the pork belly that has rendered out, which is going to melt down and coat itself back onto the pork, which is extremely incredible flavour. 5 minutes later, with 2.5 minutes on each side and very lightly golden brown, we can then remove this from the pan, placing it into a bowl or on a plate to rest just for a few minutes whilst we create the base to our sauce. Going back to the pan, we can then place in the sliced onions, reduce the heat to medium, and saute the onions for 5 to 6 minutes, stirring regularly, or until beautifully golden brown, soft, and just starting to caramelize. 5 minutes later and the onions are just starting to caramelize and pick up that amazing colour from the pork, add in the ginger paste, or minced ginger, and continue sauteing for 20 seconds to release the flavour, making sure to mix it around the whole time just so it doesn't burn. 20 seconds later, pour in half a cup or 120 milliliters of homemade teriyaki sauce, which I'll leave my link to in the description below and I highly recommend for this recipe, and follow that up by adding in the seared pork belly back in along with any of those juices left in the bowl or on the plate. What we want to do now is regularly mix this around for 2 minutes to reduce the teriyaki sauce, which will then deliciously glaze the pork, onions and ginger, as well as deglaze the pan, pulling up any of those delicious flavours that may be stuck. 2 minutes later and you have an amazing teriyaki glaze with the same consistency as maple syrup or runny honey, and it's completely coating everything. We can then turn this off the heat, remove the pan from the stovetop and allow it to rest for a minute or so. We can now add the dressing to the salad we made earlier, making sure to get it all in there to avoid any wastage, and using some tongs, your hands or a spoon, mix the salad very well to ensure everything is really well coated. To serve this up, place on a nice amount of the pork belly, topping it with those delicious caramelized onions and teriyaki glaze, then place on that tangy, colourful and fresh salad. We can then garnish this with some freshly picked mint leaves which I've been growing in my garden, some freshly picked coriander or cilantro which I've also been growing in the garden, then finally, give it a nice little sprinkle of sesame seeds for a bit of contrast and slight burst of flavour. That then leads to the best part about all of this, which is that we can then dig in. That seriously is amazing. The pork's rich, sweet and salty and literally just melts in your mouth. And with that salad alongside it with a nice tangy sesame oil and soy sauce dressing, just really completes this dish. This dish right here serves 2 people but can easily be doubled, tripled and so on. And to store it, we can place it in an airtight container in the fridge where it will last up to 3 days. And we can also place it in the freezer in an airtight container where it will last up to 4 months. But unfortunately with the salad, once you've placed the dressing on, it will start to wilt down after about 2 days. So I recommend you eat it up straight away. To reheat this, you can place it back in a skillet or a wok over a medium heat and just bring it back up to a nice hot temperature. Or you can place it in a microwave, just do whatever's easier for you. But whichever way you do it, just make sure you add a little splash of teriyaki sauce just to get things moving around again. I really hope you enjoyed this video and I was able to teach you something. If you did, be sure to smash that like button and consider subscribing to see hundreds of more fantastic recipes. Thanks for watching everyone, stay safe and enjoy.